Morning, security gang. Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast. My name is James Azar. I'm the host of the show, and I'm also a cybersecurity practitioner, chief information security officer. Welcome to our August 25th, 2025 show. 8:25 today, so lots of 25s, and you can get into the whole stuff like that, but we won't. We got a packed show for all y'all this morning. Really, a lot to talk about over the weekend. A lot kind of taking place. Remember, we do our last show on Thursday morning. So from Thursday, essentially morning, this time, until Monday, we don't really do a show. We don't really cover it. We have our summary. That summary summarizes kind of Monday through Thursday. We don't really get into Friday's news. So we're going to be covering some Friday news, weekend news, and a whole lot more. So let's get right into the show this morning. Before we do that, a tradition here on the show, my double espresso. Look at that phone. People always laugh at me. They go, like, you always show off the foam. But I go, foam is what makes espresso really, really good. And so extracted for like that. Just amazing. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Okay. Let's get into farmers insurance, disclosing a data breach impacting the personal information of more than 1 million Americans. According to the website, Farmers serves roughly 10 million households, or around 19 million insurance policies across the entire U.S. For car, property, life, commercial, and other types of insurance. They have around 48,000 agents and 21,000 employees across the country. Farmers New World Life Insurance and its parent company, Farmers Group, which is a subsidiary of Zurich Insurance Group, have filed separate data breach notifications with state authorities. So these are different because they're under different entities. And so they kind of separate the breach. So all in all, it's probably around 1.1 million people impacted. About 40,000 people were impacted because of Farmers New World Life Insurance. And then the Farmers Group gave the same notification to the Maine Attorney General, but they, on their end, they filed it on behalf of Farmers Insurance Exchange and subsidiaries and affiliates. That's over 1 million people. That's 1,071,172 affected individuals. Notification reveals that Farmers was not directly targeted by attackers. Instead, they learned from a third-party vendor on May 30th that it had detected unauthorized access to a database containing Farmers' customer information. Now, this can go to one or two that have been happening like that. There's Salesforce and there's Snowflake. We don't know which one it is. Farmer Insurance's website reveals that the compromised data includes names, addresses, dates of birth, driver's license number, and last 4 digits of their social security number. So all in all, that's the impacts of that breach. Tech manufacturer Data.io reporting a ransomware attack to federal regulators on Thursday evening, writing that the incident has taken down critical operation systems. The Redmond, Washington-based company said the ransomware attack began on August 16th, prompted outages of the technology used for shipping, manufacturing, production, and other support functions. Data.io produces electronics used in vehicles and consumer devices. More than 65% of its business in the second quarter came from automotive electronic production, including through recent contracts with Chinese electric vehicle makers producing technology for charging stations. Its website lists major companies like Tesla, Panasonic, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft as part of its customer base. The AK filed with the SEC said it's implemented containment measures. It's taken systems offline to protect its global IT network. The company is waiting on a third-party investigation to be completed before notifying potential data breach victims. There's no timeline for full restoration of services. The company reported $5.9 million in sales last quarter, a $300,000 decrease compared to the first quarter of 2025. Data.io is the second company to report a ransomware attack to the SEC after research firm Innovative said that they were recovering from one earlier this month, and Drago saying last week that it tracked 657 ransomware attacks on industrial entities globally between April and June. So that's also very, very significant there. And again, what we see from this attack, Data.io, by the way, these guys like load information onto semiconductors, or even produce some levels of technology of those semiconductors onto boards for vehicles. So this is a significant disruption in the marketplace for availability. It'll likely have some downstream impact on vehicle production. This may be one of those stories where I'm going to go ahead and say it on the show, but we'll probably do an economic breakdown of it, simply because they're not a very big company. When you think of their sales, $6 million in sales last quarter, that's, you know, that's not a lot of that's not a lot of sales, right? Like that, but the impact of those $6 million to the downstream supply chain could be significant. Um, so we'll keep an eye on the economics of it, because I think a good security practitioner is one who's always equipped with the financial information in order to make the best argument in order to reduce business risk. And in order to reduce business risk, you need to be able to talk in financial stakes. So we say that there. Sorry, we fixed this, and it still does that. All right. So Colt Technology Services is now confirming that customer documentation was stolen as part of the Warlock ransomware gang, and now they've started auctioning some of those files. The British Telecom and Network Services provider previously disclosed it suffered the attack on August 12th. The criminal group accessed certain files from their systems that may contain information related to our customers and posted the document titles on the dark web. Customers are able to request a list of file names posted on the dark web from their dedicated call center. The cybersecurity expert Kevin Boma added that Colt added the no index HTML meta tag to the webpage, marking it so that it won't be indexed by search engine. The statement comes after the Warlock Group began selling on the RAM Cybercrime forum what they claim is 1 million documents stolen from Colt. The documents are being sold for $200,000 and allegedly contain financial information, network architecture data, and even some customer information. And again, that appears that negotiations have broken down, rightfully so, right? You shouldn't reward criminals. And now they're trying to sell that data. The question is, I think if the data was really, really sensitive, my assumption here from Colt would be that they would try to pay for something in order not to release the data. However, it appears that maybe this data is old, it's not relevant, and so they're trying not to pay it, or they don't see the upside in paying. That can also be that as well. So we'll take it there. All right. We move to this story of coming from the FTC, warning U.S. tech companies that they could face action from the FTC for complying with the EU and UK regulations about content shared on their platforms. Andrew Ferguson, the new appointed chairman of the FTC, wrote to chief executives criticizing what he described as foreign attempts at censorship and efforts to countermand the use of encryption to protect American consumer data. The letter said that censoring Americans to comply with foreign powers laws could be considered a violation of Section 5 of the FTC Act, the legislation enforced by the FTC, which prohibits unfair or deceptive practices in commerce. And while the law has historically been used to prosecute misleading claims about fire safety or lending companies' hidden fees, he stated American consumers do not reasonably expect to be censored to appease a foreign power and may be deceived by such actions. Ferguson also repeated concerns widespread among conservatives that Americans have been censored and expelled from platforms for uttering opinions and beliefs that were not shared by the small Silicon Valley elite. We'll kind of not get into that discussion here. I think this one is really really significant because officials in Westminster have been bracing. That's the British Liberal government at the moment, for a clash with Vice President J.D. Vance over its online safety laws, particularly in the wake of Vance chastising European governments for attempts to regulate free speech. More extreme platforms, including 4chan, Gab, and Kiwi Farms, have to date publicly refused to comply with British regulators' regulations, and extremist ISPs in the country could be instructed to block access to those sites. So again, last week we talked a little bit about Apple's kind of win thanks to Director Gabbard over at DNI with the back door. But again, this global idea that somehow, because Instagram's American and I'm American and I criticize you, that you have access to my data is not only flawed, it has legal consequences for Instagram in the US. I'm not under European jurisdiction. I have nothing to European jurisdiction. So I can say whatever I want in America. And as long as I'm in America, I can do that. And so this censorship fight, folks, it's going to heat up, and it's going to heat up significantly over time. And again, right now it's being watched, everyone's trying to get along, but eventually it'll hit a boiling point. And once it hits that boiling point, folks, beware, because not all democracies are equal. I'm just gonna put that out there. And not the political thing, but the idea that you can regulate speech or you can go after a foreign person's speech is all of in itself a huge overreach. A Chinese state-sponsored hacking group known as Murky, Panda, or Silk Typhoon, as many of us know it, exploited trusted relationships in cloud environments to gain initial access to the networks and data of downstream customers. So this is really, really important for those that are living in the cloud, which many of us are. So Murky Panda, they've gone after OPAC. They were behind the Microsoft Exchange breaches in 2021 using the proxy logon vulnerability. They're very sophisticated. They've now started gaining initial access to corporate networks by exploiting internet exposed devices and services like the Netrix NetScaler, that's CVE 2023-3519er, or proxy logon for Microsoft Exchange, and then the Ivanti Pulse Connect VPN, because the Chinese love Ivanti. That's CVE 2025-0282. However, CrowdStrike now demonstrating how threat actors are also known to compromise cloud service providers to abuse the trust these companies have with their customers. So when we create trust in that interconnection, the Chinese attackers are relying on that in order to move laterally and in between networks. Because cloud providers are sometimes granted built-in admin access to customer environments, attackers who compromise them can abuse that trust to pivot directly into downstream networks and data. In one case, the attackers exploited zero-day vulnerabilities to break into a SaaS provider's cloud environment that then gained access to the provider's application registration secret in Entra ID, which allowed them to authenticate as a service and log into the downstream customer environments. Using this access, they were able to read customer emails and steal sensitive data. In another attack, they compromised the Microsoft Cloud Solution Provider with delegated admin privileges. By compromising an account to the admin agent group, the attackers gained global admin rights across all downstream tenants. They then created backdoor accounts in customer environments and escalated privileges, enabling persistence and the ability to access email and application data. CrowdStrike highlighting that breaches via trusted relationships are rare. They are less monitored than more common vectors like credential theft. However, you're seeing kind of, again, the amount of sophistication that goes into these attacks in order not to be able to be recognized, in order to continue to have obfuscation. As they do this, CrowdStrike is warning that Silk Typhoon is a sophisticated adversary with advanced skills and the ability to rapidly weaponize both zero days and end day vulnerabilities. 100% true. You got to be able to catch up on those. CISA is once again trying to make SBOMs happen, this time with a new framework that doubles down on machine-readable transparency and expands what SBOMs should actually include in real-world applications. CISA published a draft update on Friday to its minimum elements for an SBOM, seeking public input on tooling and adoption practices that could help software ingredients lists evolve from abstract ideals to practical tools for vulnerability management, supply chain transparency, and operational security. The draft emphasizes real-world applications, adding 4 new data fields like component hash, license, tool name, and generation context, while updating core elements like software producers, component version, and dependency relationship to better reflect how SBOMs are actually granted. So SBOM is I think by the end of 2026, we'll see SBOMs really take on a shape of their own, potentially with some level of enforcement from DHS and CISA. So something to keep in mind. The public can provide feedback on the draft guidance until October 3rd through the Federal Register. So you want to make sure you get that done. An Android malware posing as an antivirus tool software created by Russia's FSB is being used to target executives of Russian businesses. In a new report from Russian mobile security firm Dr. Web, researchers tracked the new spyware as an Android backdoor.9er16.origin, finding no links to known malware families. So it's a brand new malware. Among its various capabilities, the malware can snoop on conversations, stream from the phone's camera, log user input with a keylogger, and even exfiltrate communication data from Messenger app. Dr. Webb reported that since the initial discovery of the malware in January of this year, it has sampled multiple subsequent versions, indicating continuous development. Based on the distribution lures, infection methods, and the fact that its interface only offers the Russian language option, the researchers believed it was designed for targeted attacks against Russian businesses. So, and because it's only one language, that's that aspect of it as well. While the user's clicks on scan, the interface displays a simulation programming to return a fake positive result and 30% of the time, and the number of detections ranging between 1 and 3. Upon installation, the malware requests granting several high-risk permissions like geolocation, access to SMS, and media files, camera, audio recording, accessibility services, and permissions to run in the background at all times. So a new form of malware, something a little scary there. So let's get to some good guys prevail here. A cybercrime crackdown coordinated by Interpol in Africa led to the arrest of 1,209 suspects and the recovery of $97.4 million in an operation called Serengeti 2.0. The operation took place between June and August. They brought investigators from 18 African countries and the UK to fight harmful cybercrimes, including inheritance scams, ransomware, and business email compromise. Altogether, the scams impacted nearly 88,000 victims, according to Interpol. Interpol said authorities in Angola dismantled 25 crypto mining centers where 60 Chinese nationals had been mining cryptocurrency. Again, happening in Africa, powered by Chinese. The operation resulted in the confiscation of equipment worth more than over $37 million. The government now plans to use that equipment to support power distribution in vulnerable areas. In Zambia, the operation dismantled an online investment scheme that defrauded more than 65,000 victims of an estimated $300 million through fraudulent high-return cryptocurrency scams. These scammers lured victims into investing in crypto through extensive advertising campaign promising high-yield returns. In locating the scam center in Zambia, authorities also disrupted a suspected human trafficking network, according to Interpol. Interpol said they dismantled a transnational inheritance scam in the Ivory Coast, which had originated in Germany. Victims of that scam were tricked into paying fees to claim fake inheritance, causing $1.6 million in losses. Interpol, again, leading this, over 1,000 people arrested, and some money recovered. A Chinese national who sabotaged Ohio's company systems was handed a 4-year jail sentence. David Liu, a 55-year-old Chinese national, was convicted in March of causing intentional damage to protected computers. In addition to the 4-year sentence, Liu was given 3 years of supervised release. In court documents, prosecutor accused Liu of writing and deploying malicious code in 2018 and 2019 after a corporate restructuring at an Ohio-based company where he had worked since 2007 reduced his role in system access. Liu introduced malicious code that he knew would cause system crashes and prevent user logins, according to the DOJ. According to Cleveland.com, Liu worked for the power management company Eaton Corporation. The defendant breached his employer's trust by using his access and technical knowledge to sabotage the company's networks, wreaking havoc and causing hundreds of thousands of dollars in losses to the U.S. company. Another Chinese national. Look at Africa. You see it there. And Netscope on Friday announcing an initial public offering filing with the SEC that it will go public on NASDAQ under the symbol NTSK. The California-based SASE solution provider now reporting record sales with 33% year-over-year increase and $707 million in the first half of 2025. However, the security firm is not profitable. It reported a net loss of $170 million for the first half of 2025, but pointed out its improvement over a $270 million loss reported in 2024. So they're losing less money. The lead underwriters for the Netscope's IPO are Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan. And obviously, we're seeing a surge in IPOs in cyber now. So there's that. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow 9 a.m. Eastern live with all the latest cybersecurity news. Until then, please make sure to check out our website, cyberhubpodcast.com. Subscribe, follow, share, like, comment. Let us know what you think about censorship and everything else you hear on the show. Until then, have a great rest of your day, y'all. And most importantly, stay cyber.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.